Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. Hey guys, welcome back to Strong Dads here with Merle. We got a special guest in the house. Pretty excited about that.
Yeah,
the
good.
Sun is shining today.
I can see somebody beside you today.
I know. Well, last time it was the wife, so
yeah,
we better like to look at that.
That show's getting nailed.
Is it?
Yeah, and I think people are laughing at our expense on that show.
As they should.
Yeah, that was good.
Should. Well, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, hey, I got some news. So I'm another granddad again today.
Good for you,
So I was
Merle.
up. We did not sleep at all
Really?
last night. Yeah. So our oldest son, so we have two biological sons, and the youngest of that had his first last night. His wife did, actually, if I had to be clear.
Good.
And it was just before midnight, and of course I was like just about like out cold, and all of a sudden the phone started blowing up.
Oh yeah.
And then they're sending pictures and everything. So then of course Linda and I are just till 2 in the morning. I'm like, just quit. I gotta go to sleep.
Well, our guest over here, Rocky, did you hear he says he's a granddad? So
4 times
the
over.
old man over there.
4 times over.
Well, good for you, Merle. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So if I fall asleep in the middle of the show, just forgive me, all right?
All right, sounds good.
All right, so today we want to welcome our special guest. So our guest today is a West Side favorite. He grew up in Cincinnati, played football for St. X, went on to play football at Notre Dame, and in 2002 was selected in the 4th round of the NFL draft by the Tennessee Titans. After playing 8 seasons in the NFL and earning a Super Bowl ring with the Indianapolis Colts, he hung up his cleats and took to the airwaves. Today he is a football commentator for both college and NFL football, but you may hear him more often on the 50,000-watt flamethrower WLW as he partners with his co-host Eddie Fingers. Today we would like to welcome Rocky Boiman to the Strong Dads podcast. Rocky, welcome.
Fellas, great to be here.
That's
good,
awesome.
good.
Thanks.
That's a heck of an intro, though.
That is, that was great.
We
didn't
didn't
do
fabricate
that.
anything in there?
No,
that's all true.
Can't believe it, but it seems like so long ago, but it's true,
Wikipedia is great, man.
Yeah, that's right. It's right where you need to be. No question.
So, Rocky, we do want to thank you for coming in. And, this is Strong Dads Podcast. And just to bring any of our listeners up to speed as to what Kyle and I are about, Kyle is a fireman, works in the first responder world. I came from the counseling world and worked directly in the high school and then in the elementary school. And for a man to work in an elementary school as a counselor is kind of a weird thing. Mm-hmm. Mostly that's women. But I was led there thinking, if I'm going to really make a difference in families, because families, for whatever reason, was always laid on my heart. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a good family, and I just thought, you know what, if we're going to make an impact, make a change, we got to work young. Okay, so I went for the younger age, and it really was enlightening to see exactly what's going on there in our homes. And so Kyle gets to see, he works inner city, works in Dayton, and Kyle, you can speak to some of the stuff that you see and just brokenness, broken homes, and so I saw that in the school setting, and there was a common theme. The common theme was dads aren't doing their job. Yep. And we're not here to beat dads up. We're here to grab them and encourage them and say, we need you. We need you.
Of course.
And so that's a big drive that we have. And, listening to you on the radio, and I know you talk about your sons and you just talk about family, and I know I've listened to you like on Brian Tome's show. Yeah. I definitely get the idea that this is a big deal for you. You take it pretty seriously.
No, there's no question. I often say this on air, but if I had to boil a lot of the country's, the world's problems down to one thing, I think it would be the family isn't as present as it needs to be. The structure of the family and the disciplining of kids and raising kids the right way. I think if we could cure that, that would solve a lot of the other ancillary issues that are out there. But especially dads. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family where I had a mom and a dad, and both were there, and both had different roles.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they complemented each other. You
Yeah.
know, and that, and that's a good thing. You don't want two of the same thing. You want the strengths of
There's
one,
a
the
reason
strengths
that
of the
they're a
others.
little different. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But to have that male influence in both a son and a daughter's life, I think is vastly, vastly important.
Yeah, and we've done the shows before where the statistics just flat out support it and back it up. And whether it's crime or homelessness or school dropout or whatever vital statistic that we use to measure the health of our society, dads are connected to that.
Correct.
And I, sometimes we point fingers at the politics of things, and if we change this law or added this law, it would fix everything, or throw more money at something. And, not that I'm against some social programs, but at the end of the day, if we don't get the family, if we don't have this conversation that we're having today, if that conversation does not come back to the table and become one of the most important things, we're an uphill battle.
Well, to that point, I have teacher friends tell me, they say, look, it's frustrating because as much as instruction and things that I do during the course of my school day, when they go home and it's not being reinforced, it's basically a lost cause.
Yeah.
So.
And not only not being reinforced, but sometimes you're being fought with
by
a parent or whatever. So you're just it is a challenge. Well, hey, we're going to get into your story. I know you've recently written a book, so we want to definitely give you some time in that and explain what's going on there. But we better pay some of our own bills.
Yeah.
So.
I know how this game works.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're excited to have you here, Rocky. But today's Strong Dads podcast, we definitely want to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana, for coming alongside of us. The Mansfield Insurance Agency was established in 1981, and they are definitely been dedicated to individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, and they serve all clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So for all your insurance needs, definitely give them a call.
All right, very good. We also Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer's Beer House for sponsoring today's show. The Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House, located down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. I was just talking to one of their servers yesterday, and they're killing it down on the river bar. Yeah. So keep it going, man, because Mark's a big supporter, and he's also took a big hit through all this COVID stuff. So he's
he
trying.
used to own the house I live in right now, currently too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For a certain period of time, and he actually lives. You can throw out, not even a quarter mile from me right now. I pass him every day. Yeah,
good.
Great guy, great family.
Did you throw a ball or like a normal
not
person?
anymore, but yeah.
The shoulder doesn't work like it used to.
Correct.
Yeah. So, let's get into the show a little bit, all right? We talked a little bit about the brokenness of our homes and stuff, but let's really talk about Rocky's home, Rocky's upbringing. And just to, you have a lot of listeners, and even we're out here in Indiana, but I know we have a lot of tri-state listeners as well, and so we just want to pique their interest in if you would share some of your stories. So what was life like growing up as Rocky Boiman?
Yeah, it was great. Grew up in the west side, which I think of Cincinnati, which has a lot of just good core value people. You know what I mean? Not a lot of flash, none of that. It was a very middle class family. But one that was old school. My dad especially was old school in the discipline. He'd tell me often as a kid that, look, I'm not here to be your friend right now. I'm here to be your father. Now that I'm 40, he and I are like best buddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the time, he was always very quick to remind you, look, I'm going to be your dad first. And then, and that means we'll get along and all that sort of stuff, but I'm going to tell you when you're wrong. And he still tells me when I'm wrong. And so the parenting, the fathering doesn't end at all ever. But between that, so he was kind of the heavy, right? No BS kind of guy. And then my mom was just the most wonderful lady in the world, just a little bit softer and, but still, they shared the same beliefs and how they wanted to raise me and push me to be my best and never to settle and learn the things that I think are important in life, which are sacrifice and and hard work and all those sorts of things.
How we often hear about kids growing up and I was a coach for many years, and you probably see this because I know you work with a lot of young kids. Just the idea that parents over driving their kid. How tough was it for your parents to not, I mean, they recognized some talent in you, I'm sure,
Right.
at a fairly young age, and to not take it to the point where you finally just hated it.
Right. No, I think it was a good balance. And my dad did push me, and and it helped, right? It really helped work in terms of athletics and things I was able to achieve. But yeah, you got to make sure. I still always felt that it was my dream, wasn't his. Like he wanted me to get there. It wasn't. I think some days fall in the trap of it's like it's about them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're
right.
Yeah.
But I also push back a little on at times when parents are like, oh, you shouldn't push your kids too hard. Well, yeah, yes and no. I think you do have to push your kids sometimes when they may not want to go hit baseballs, right?
Yeah,
I'm like my son right now, 6 years old, and he's tremendously talented, even just at 6 at baseball. And does he all the time want to go out and hit ball? No, but sometimes I'm like, hey, we're going to go do this, and we're going to do it for 10 minutes, right? It's not going to be long. We're not going to be here all day, but you're going to focus in. You're going to do this. So the whole concept of how parents shouldn't push their kids and make their kids do what they don't want to do. Yes and no. At some point, you got to instill in that. Look, in life, I'm sure every day you guys do things you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do them. Because the end goal, that other thing you want to get to, requires you to do some of those things that you may not want to do at that particular time.
Which speaks into what you're talking about with your dad, that your dad said he was going to be your dad and not your friend at that time. And, a lot of times as friends, it's easier to say, yeah, you're good, man, just give up. And you kind of almost like encourage that behavior, whereas a father can actually speak the truth, like, hey, I know this isn't what you want to do right now, but long term, this is going to benefit you greatly.
Exactly. I mean, I wanted to practice football with my dad in Towson, but there were some days weekends where I didn't want to, and he'd be like, hey, come on, get your stuff, go in the car, and we're gonna do this for a little bit. We're not gonna be out here for 4 hours or nothing. And they're, oh God, here we go, Dad, this and that. But it ultimately helped, and I think it helped kind of instill that sort of mindset in my life.
I just coming through as working with a lot of kids and parents, I always said, as a parent, you have to do that fine line of driving without breaking their spirit. If you break their spirit, if you're like, I can't do anything right, I'll never live up to it. If you get to that point of breaking their spirit, then that's when they just totally reject everything that you're trying to do. So it's that fine line. I have a son right now who's, he's actually a pretty talented little cross-country runner, but it's 90 degrees out, right? He's not real excited about running. I'm like, hey, dude, a little bit. How about let's go in the morning? Let's do a little bit. And he was giving me the look this week of like, oh, Dad, I don't like you right now. I'm like, hey, you're all right. You're all right. Let's just roll. Let's do a little. So, yeah. And I do think that's a fine balance. Because that can blow up on our face, right? If all of a sudden we're the hard driver, and eventually they resent you,
right?
So you can definitely you can definitely drive that home at 2:00 in the afternoon in mid-July. Go out there and run. Let's go, kid. You can break some serious spirits.
I have been guilty of things like that in the past, so that's a different show.
Not perfect,
Well, that's cool. Hey, Rocky, definitely let's kind of keep the ball rolling. What kind of growing up as you progress into your career, obviously, what have been some of your biggest influences, and kind of like how did that play a role into who you are?
I obviously my parents are the biggest. You know what I mean? Sure. They were always my biggest fan. Were there for me and sacrificed a lot of what they may have wanted to do in life for me. We didn't go on a lot of vacations and stuff because our vacations were traveling baseball. You know what I mean? And we're this and that. And I'm sure there's some things my dad were places they would have liked to go and stuff he would have liked to had. But it took priority there. So I owe everything where I'm at to them. Also been blessed to just have a bunch of great teachers and coaches throughout my life. Starting with Steve Specht at St. Xavier, one of the top people in my life. Tony Dungy, obviously, Urban Meyer has been a big influence on me in a lot of ways. Are real tight. So it's
there's some big names there.
Yeah, it's been really good, and I just think I was instilled with the values early. I think it's important to raise kids and give them the values and the structure and the discipline early, because I feel like you start trying to parent at like age 12. I think it's party's over. Right? You got to do these things early. and make sure those mindsets are there, or at least they're able to be accepted.
Yeah.
And then from there, then you can kind of allow the kid to choose those things. But the groundwork has to be laid, and I feel like that was laid early in my life.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We talk about that all the time whenever I meet with parents that are having some kid issues. Say, okay, so let's stop right now. What's your goal for this kid? What's your goal? When they walk out of your house, 21, 22, 23, whatever that is. And I mean, I could pretty much write the script. They all say within a word about the same thing. I want them to be happy. I want them to be successful. I want them to be driven. I want them to be responsible. And then I'm like, okay, so when are you going to start training that up? When are you going to wait till they're 18? Because like you said, I mean, this starts, kids are able to take direction at the age between 2 and 3.
Right.
Hey, help me clean up your toys. That young. And we avoid that, right? Because it might get a kickback. It might get a yell or a cry or a push. And it's like, man, you're the parent. So good stuff there. Well, Rocky, so obviously, we are faith-based. Our faith is important to us. And the reason why it's important, we work under the ministry of Rock Solid Families. And the purpose in Rock Solid Families is that in Matthew 7:24, it just talks about, you're going to build your house on a rock, or you're going to build your house on sand. Right. And if you build it on sand, you might be able to build a little bit bigger house. It might be easier to build that house. You may build it faster. But when the storms come, it's going to crumble. And so Rock Solid Families is about, your foundation of, you talked about your parents were together in raising you. They had the same common thought and stuff. And so we really stress the idea of, Rocky doesn't know it all. Hutch doesn't know it all. Well, Kyle, you might.
I definitely do not.
But none of us, we don't know it all. So what's our constitution, so to speak? What are we going to found our family on? And so where is God in that for you and your faith and you and your wife and just pulling that together?
I think I would describe myself as more of a spiritual person than a religious person. I'll be, fully straightforward. We don't, attend much service. We've tried different things. I was raised more or less Catholic, and that was part of my life for a while, and tried some other stuff. But I hate to say it, but sometimes the busyness of life and stuff, and wanting to raise kids and do stuff with them kind of takes precedent, and it shouldn't be that way. But again, I would say I'm more spiritual. I feel like I got a good relationship with God. I talk to Him all the time. I pray every night. I end my prayer every night ends the same way. I say, number one, Lord, if there's some sort of danger or something that's going to befall upon our family, let it be me and not my wife and kids. Put it on me. Okay, if it's something evil has to happen, put it on me. And then last thing I say is, Lord, help me tomorrow to be a better husband, a better father, and a better man than I was today. Every night. That's how it always ends. So that's kind of I think I would like to do better. I'm not doing well in the organized religion, not doing well with my son, but I feel like we're at least instilling him the concepts of God and doing the right thing and all the things that God teaches.
Yeah, well, I think that's we're all in a stage of growth. We get in trouble when we say, "I am who I am. Take me or leave me. This is it." That's stagnant. If you were a football player in the NFL and you looked at your coach and said that, how long would you last?
Yeah. I like that. That's good. That's against kind of the conventional thing to say.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and so we're always in a state of growth. I look at where I was, when I was, 30 and 40, and now, gosh, almost 60. That hurts. That hurts. But when man, I want to keep growing.
Right.
And I'm reading things now that I go, wow, I did not really get that when I was, 35. I heard it maybe, but it didn't hit me like it maybe does now. And so I think, it's just important that you're in the growth phase versus I'm done. I got this. Yeah. And I think religion can do that to us sometimes because we get burnt just by the bureaucracies, the rules and stuff. And so...
Well, we talk about this all the time down at Whitewater, where we go to church. The idea that it's a relationship, it's not a religion. The idea that relationships take work, And seemingly, a lot of times the idea of religion gets caught up in rules, and a lot of times that's not appealing to people. So the idea that your relationship with God is it is a relationship, and it takes work, just like it is with marriage. Like some days, some days marriages really suck and are really hard, but it's just that grind. It's just you got to keep digging in, just like we were talking about Merle, just like not getting stagnant with it, just knowing that every day. Just like you were saying, Rocky, like I want to be a better man than I was today, and what that looks like, hopefully you get to explore that with your kids and kind of dive into who God is for them. We talk about that idea that we can't make, we can't make God for our kids. Like it has to just happen. It has to be something that they develop. It's not something we should like be passive and sit by. We should be very aggressive in that. But just that idea that every day it is a relationship and it's something we got to work on. And that takes constant communication, just like you were saying with prayer. That reading His Word and it looks different for everybody. And I just think it's cool. Just like you've addressed that idea that right now it's not what you want more for that.
Yeah.
And again, it's a relationship and it takes work.
Yeah, it does, no question.
Yeah, keep growing.
Yeah.
So, all right. I mean, well, I don't know about this season because I don't even know what COVID's going to do to your football season this year. It's crazy, right? It's up in the air. But I know you do college, you do some NFL stuff, you do all this stuff. So, you're balancing family, you're balancing all these work things, you're balancing radio. How do you decide? What kind of thought process do you go through to say, okay, these are my priorities?
Right. That's a very important question. And let me say, first of all, I do believe that, to accomplish some things you want to in life, there's going to be things that you can't do it all, right? There's going to be t-ball games you miss, and there's going to be dinners you miss with your wife, stuff that you'd like to do, but some things have to sacrifice. There's no super successful person out there that can do all of that. So but what has to happen is you have to prioritize. There's other things in my life that I have to sacrifice, right? I'm not in a, I don't play in a softball league.
Yeah.
I don't golf on the weekends. I don't, what I'm saying? It's more, it's like someone's got to give here. Well, I don't want that give to be, the time I spend with my kids and my family is, as much as I can. So I think for me, it's number one, it's go on less sleep, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it. What's really worked out for me is I get up early. I get about 4:35 in the morning.
Wow. You're a beast, man.
Yeah, well,
I can't do that.
but then I'm in bed by about 9.
Okay,
so,
all right. There's a trade-off.
But I can, but I found if I can just get stuff done while the rest of the world is sleeping a little bit. That way I can. When my kids wake up and stuff, and I've done a lot of my work as I'm getting ready for my show during the day, maybe there's a spare half hour there, and we can go out, we can throw a ball, we can go around the quad, just do stuff like just a little bit here and there. The weekends, during college football season is hard because, I do my regular show 3 to 6. On Thursdays, I do a Bengals show 7 to 9. I get home from that at 10. Wake up at 4, go to the airport, fly out, go to the whatever site we're going to, Georgia, Clemson, whatever it is, and we're there for a couple of days. Doing that, do the game. Go to bed, wake up Sunday morning 3:30, hit the plane, come back, land at noon. Bengals game's on at 1. I gotta watch that.
Right.
So but then after that, I try to but that's why on the plane at 4:30 in the morning, you're trying to get a little head start for that week. Just a little bit of something so that when after the Bengals game that I have to watch as part of my job, right? If I didn't want to, I can spend some of the time with my family. So it's just and everybody does. I'm not doing anything that people aren't doing, but I think the answer is just sacrifice and some of the things that I personally would like to do don't get done, so I can make sure I save some of the time for the family.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think it is that balance of just trying to work that, and I think it's one of the things that we talk about when we talk about working with couples is the bottom line is you try to meet the heart of your spouse. And all of our spouses have a different level of need and desire, and we all know when our wife's not happy with how things rolling, right?
Correct.
And if we're ignorant,
they have their own unique way of telling.
Yeah. And again, I mean, part of the respect for the marriage is you don't just say, "Well, it is what it is," or whatever. You go, "Okay, wait. What do you need from me here?" And that's where you start the balancing act, and that's And it goes, her to you as well, right? I mean, if she was just sort of neglecting or pushing you to the side, you'd feel exactly the same way.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah.
So we just had our wives, like, as we were saying, and we got into the idea of different parenting roles. So, Rocky, how do parenting roles? What does the parenting look like for you and your wife?
My parents.
Now this will be aired, okay?
So you want to talk about your wife getting mad?
Absolutely. No, I mean, my parenting style more or less mirrors what my dad's was. I think I told you a few minutes ago that he was kind of more the heavy, the disciplined, that sort of thing. My wife or my mom a little bit softer but still nurturing and still not a pushover either. And that's kind of the same exact way our family runs. I'm the guy that. When something goes wrong, like my dad always told me, he said, if you're gonna, get on someone, getting on them like one time hard is better than 10 times little. You know what I mean? Like better than, hey, don't do that. No, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? That's and it gets the attention, and that's not my wife's way. Hers is a little different.
Yeah.
And sometimes that. And her and I have to, as any parents do, you got to discuss. Hey, how did we handle that right? Is there anything we need to kind of reinforce with that? But I try to be the guy that's a little more no nonsense and all that, and she does the same way, but it's just a little bit softer. And that way, I think the rough edges are smoothed out.
Yeah. I mean, our two older boys, unless I was out playing with them, throwing ball or something. Up until they were 7, 8, 9, they'd always run to mom. They're always at mom. At mom. And, you're like, okay, wait, come on, boys. I'm right over here.
Right.
But they're just attracted to the softness, to the nurturing and all that. And then somewhere in that 12, 13 age grouping, Dad, what are you doing today? I want to hang with you. Because they're like, they don't want to be mommied anymore. They do this conversion sort of thing. And I remember my wife saying, I feel like I'm out here all by myself. I said, hey, welcome to my world. The first 8 years, that's what
I lived that for, exactly.
But, because they start to be attracted as a child of that, a masculine child, like, well, what's Dad doing? I want to be like Dad.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I think that's a great point. I always say, on my best day, I can't be as soft and as nurturing as my wife.
Right.
And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Yep. No, that's why two parents are needed.
Yeah,
it really is so important.
Yeah, and the kids benefit when there's the balance in there.
Definitely.
It's good stuff. So, Rocky, as you talk about all the stuff that you're doing, balancing work and life and all these things, we talk about legacy sometimes. Mm-hmm. Okay, at some point in time, you're going to have a tombstone or something similar, right? What do you want your life to be left as? What's the memory? What do you want your kids to have? We don't need to get morbid and dark here, but what's your story at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think for me, I just like to be remembered for someone that was always dared to do great things. You know what I mean? Sometimes I think that the world it promotes, hey, just do just enough to get by. Do just enough to not get fired.
Yeah.
Because anything more is wasteful. Like, why would you, spend an hour after work doing you're not getting paid for that? Well, I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think you got to, look at those great things that are out there. Realize that they're possible. Sure. I think a lot of times we just defeat ourselves because, that's meant for someone else. I mean, someone else is meant to play in the NFL, not me. I early on, and obviously that was helped by the fact I was blessed by God. That happened to be something that He gave me, was a body and a mind that was able to where that came easy to some degree. So believing in that, but then just again daring to not allow to put limits on myself. And I think that's something that I don't do, and I try to instill that in my kids as well. But outside of that, just a guy that was. I was blessed with a lot, but I don't think it was. There's lots of ups and downs I've had too. I think I'll think back to some of my proudest moments on a football field, and it's not necessarily it's not, winning the Super Bowl. It's in, year 7 when I get cut, from the Eagles. And then I'm out of football for 6 weeks. And I'm working out on a football field, Anderson High School, and it's mid-October and there's nobody out there. It's cold. And I'm still training, just, and I'm hanging in there. Come on, man. If I keep working this, maybe that phone will ring. And it did. That's what I'm proud of is a moment like that versus some success. Because I know there's not a lot of people that could have weathered through that, and for that reason, I'm proud.
Yeah, that's good. That's the perseverance, the determination, and the legacy.
Yeah, perseverance is big, man. I mean, life is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
It just is. That's how you respond to it, and not letting it get you down, not giving up. I know that's cliche, but I think that's so important.
Yeah. Well, it might be cliche, but it's another thing to actually follow through with that. It's easy to say, you got to give something up, and that's what I from everything you've been saying so far. I've heard. A lot of the underlying of what you're talking about is sacrifice. And I know you said your dad instilled that in you, and it sounds like that's kind of been a progression in your life, that a lot of things have gone on and success, and it's because of sacrifice. It's because of that perseverance. It's not giving up. Those October days when I'm sure there's 100 other things you could have been doing, but you knew what you wanted to get, and there was a goal that was set, and not only was it a goal that it was achievable, and you knew to get there you had to have sacrifice. And
you got to do it. And
absolutely,
it's been my whole life.
There's two things that just jumped out at me as you were talking, and I make this comment, and you're already just a person who shows that. You seldom run into an 80-year-old arrogant man because life has kicked their butt many, many times. Right. Now, you'll run into a 25-year-old arrogant piece, but by the time we get to a certain age, whether you're training again out in October when it's nasty and you're like, what am I doing this for? Yeah. There's that humility that comes, and I think the faster we realize that I need to persevere. Right. I need, and this, you've said something else that I think is so important, and it's missing in our teaching of kids. You said, I was blessed with God-given talent. Rocky, you didn't create yourself, did you? You didn't create yourself in the womb, right? And so, these were things that were given to you, and you give credit to that, right? Like the idea, and so you've got a son who's 6 years old, and he's already showing talent. Well, he didn't say, I'm great. No. Yeah. You were made with great talents, okay? But you didn't make yourself. No, so don't be giving yourself all this credit. Right. And I think, a lot of us now are, as parents, we talk about building our kids' self-esteem by telling them how great they are. No, we need to tell them how blessed they are. Yeah. You're lucky. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Right. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it?
Right? Because if they think they're just great because they are, that how dangerous is that? Eventually, that's arrogant. That's like, well, I'll start working harder when people appreciate me more. Yeah. Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. It's actually the opposite. Yeah. You keep working hard and you do, then people will appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, Rocky, you've written a book called Rocky's Rules. When's it released?
So it'll be out mid-August. We're taking pre-orders right now on my website, therockyboiman.com. It's pre-order an autographed copy, and and I'm making like $4 per book. I priced it. I want, to me it was important to get out there and all that sort of thing. And it's writing a book is something I kind of thought I would do, and people would tell me like throughout my life, like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, what? Like, why? And I knew I wasn't going to do something on my life because, I've had some great things, but I don't think it's anything that special. You know what I mean? To warrant a memoir, right? So that wasn't what it was about. But I'm a pretty principled guy. I think you've figured that out in our talk here. And I've always been that way, but I've especially in the no-nonsense world of the NFL, you're competing at the highest high level around the greatest, most driven, successful people. Yeah. You learn a lot. Yeah. And I learned a lot of through failures, you know what I mean? Sure. And so I kind of have these mindsets of, what I think important. And so I have it's a book's 11 chapters, and these are my rules for life. Yeah. And real quick, how that name came up is there's a psychologist named Jordan Peterson.
Sure. You ever heard of Jordan all the time.
Yeah, and he has the book 12 Rules for Life. Yeah. And it's good, but it's kind of wonky, right? It's kind of, it's very...
He gets his head wrapped around the axle a lot.
Yes, you get in the weeds. But anyway, I started thinking, what are my rules for life? And I've been, over the course of time, ever since I played, more so in the last 2-3 years, I kept writing down little things like, this is a mindset kids, young people need to have. Yeah. And it all kind of came about, and I started realizing, well, where did I learn that? Oh, well, here's some horrible thing that happened to me in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. Or here's some hard lesson that I learned. So, for instance, again, every chapter is one. Chapter 5 is seek to be strong, not safe. I think that's very important, and I won't give away the story of how I learned that, but I think so often in life, parents, okay, how do I make my kids safer? No, you're not going to shield them from everything. There's going to be something that's going to negatively affect them. Instead, equip them with the strength to be able to deal with it. Don't remove the obstacle. Teach them how to be strong to be able to withstand anything and everything.
What a great message during COVID.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Totally.
Yeah. Right?
Well, it's funny because as I had written the book and then, talked to a guy that was kind of giving me a little advice. He said, you might want to say something about this because, this COVID thing. So I put a little forward in the book about that. Like, hey, these are things we're going to need to get out of COVID. And again, the chapters of the book. We need to be strong, not safe. We need to, chapter 8, don't ever become a victim. Chapter 9,
all the time.
Be flexible, not rigid in life. Finish what you start. So it's a lot of these core things. I'll give you just one for instance, one story. In chapter 1, and it's, to me, I think it's one of the most important things, and that is prepare, and one day your chance will come. Okay, and it goes on. Not always prepared my whole life, but after my first year in the NFL with the Titans, I had a great year, but I wanted to become a starter. Right, I wanted to be that guy. And I had a nice preseason. It wasn't happening, so I just started getting frustrated. I'm like, why the hell am I doing all this, right? I'm coming in early, staying late, and and doing all the weightlifting and the meal. And so I started kind of, just kind of be like, whatever, I'm not going to do these things. And my linebacker coach, Gunther Cunningham, kept me after in a meeting one day. He said, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? He goes, you were always the guy that, did the hard work and all that, and now I can sense you're kind of not there. You're pissed or something about it. I was like, yeah, I am. He said, look, all I can tell you is, you never know when you're going to get, your opportunity to start and do all that. If I were you, I'd keep preparing as if you were the starter and keep going like that. Anyways, long story short, we're in week 4 of the season, and I've been doing special teams and playing situationally and all that, but I was preparing, I kind of reinvigorated me to do that, to prepare. Well, boom, the starter would go to Pittsburgh, play a game. Starter in front of me goes down early in the first quarter. All of a sudden, I'm in there, right? I'm here right in the middle, right in the middle in Heinz Field, in the middle of a Steelers drive.
Now, stop for a second. Yeah. How hard does your heart beat in the middle of that?
Totally did. And early on, I was screwing up bad. I remember our safety, Lance Shoulders, yelling at me and stuff I can't even say on this podcast. Because I was kind of tight. But then I remember thinking to myself, I've earned the right to be here, man. I have put in as much or more work than anybody on this field. I earned the right to be here. Yeah. And it kind of settled me down, and I wound up having a really fantastic game. I had about a dozen tackles. I had an interception return for a touchdown. I had a safety. I got AFC Defensive Player of the Week later that week. Wow. And after the game, it's like the media's talking to me, and my buddies are all going crazy. But I almost wasn't. I was happy, I was proud, but I wasn't ecstatic because I was sitting on that bus. I'll never forget sitting on the bus looking out at the stadium as the bus is kind of driving away, thinking to myself, how sick would I have been had I gotten that opportunity and I didn't study the game plan, I didn't know what was going on, and I got that opportunity and blew it. And I always tell it to kids, I've found this in life, it will happen, you will get your opportunity in life. It's just a matter of what you do with it. Will you piss it away, or will you find a way to when it does come, you're saying, I'm ready. I can do this. So that's chapter 1.
That's awesome.
That's a good way to start the book, huh?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I love it.
And it gets better from there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, as you're telling the story, your veins are coming out of your neck. Getting fired up. So I love it. Love it.
Again, book will be out mid-August. RockyBoiman.com and check it out. And pre-sales have been unbelievable so far.
Great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's great stuff. So. right now you're working at WLW. You're with your buddy Eddie Fingers.
Yeah.
All that going well?
Yeah, it's going great. We got a good show, and God, I can't believe it's going to be 3 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing that show basically in September. And early on, when I first got that show back in 2017, I mean, for a while it wasn't going good, right?
Yeah.
Just the the ratings were bad, and and I was trying to find myself and what I wanted to do, and it was kind of in any way, but we worked hard through that, and really I think developed a good relationship.
Yeah.
We talk about parents complimenting each other. Yeah. He's a little more laid back and easy going. I'm kind of the guy that wants that sort of thing. But sometimes you need to let radio happen instead of forcing yourself upon it.
That is so true.
And I learned that from these guys who've been doing it for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, we got to do this, and that. How about we go into this segment and we don't know exactly what we're going to talk about. How about that? Let's see how that goes, and then just BS around a little bit, and then we, and more times than not, we find something that clicks, and it's good. So
maybe your ratings weren't so good because you followed up after Willie.
I like to tell him that, but I don't think that's the
How
case.
is Willie Cunningham? How is he?
He is
a wild man.
What you hear on air is how he is, man. He's the best. And,
Yeah.
And I got to tell this quick story because I adore him, and he's been very good to me, and just being the example of how to do a show and just that world. And he's just a tremendous person. He's not a guy that's all talk, but I'll never forget. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I filled in for Scott Sloan in the morning, right, 9 to noon. And and this is at a point where I'm very new to this, and I probably didn't, if you had a choice of people to fill in on a major talk show at 9 a.m., you probably wouldn't have picked me at that point. Right? But it just happened to
Rocky who?
Right, there's no one else, and and I did it, and I did for like a couple of days. And it was good, but God, I had so much work in this. And I had, notebook filled of notes and all this sort of thing. And so I get done with the show. Like, oh man, it felt good. And here comes Willie walking in with just his earphones. I'm like, so Willie, what are you going to talk about? And he goes, oh hell, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Like, you got 6 minutes till you go on air. But I was like, that was cool, man. He's been doing it for so long. He's so confident. And he knows what he's talking about enough. He's not reading stuff. He's not, at that stage, I'm trying to be perfect, and he's just letting it go.
Well, that's the trust in the heart. We do these podcasts, and and I've been a teacher forever. And to me, there's nothing worse than a teacher who's reading notes. I need to have my basic outline, and after that, a general idea of where I want to go. And after that, you can tell when somebody's speaking from the heart.
Totally.
If they're not speaking from the heart, they're disconnected. And so, that's it. When we do these shows, we come in with, okay, where we want to go, all right? Yeah. But then let's just let this happen.
Yeah,
and,
let it happen.
For the most part, the right things come, and sometimes you learn to laugh at yourself, like, well, screwed that one up.
We'll get them next time. No, you're right. I think that is important. I know when I've found when I give speeches, and I do that fairly often, that I don't read a speech, because if you do that, you're losing it, especially today, everyone's looking at their phone. But if you're looking at them and you know what you're talking about, and you're talking from the heart, and that same thing with what I try to do in a speech is what I do in the book. Is these are all parables, right? Jesus taught through parables, right? You tell a story that involved you. People are into that versus reading off a bunch of things for them that you think is important.
Yeah.
That's not
Tomorrow we should do a live show. We should see how bad that goes. we pre-record all our shows so we can go back and listen and be like, golly, that was a terrible thing.
Well, believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe, but I seldom do much editing on a show because, one, I want people to see the real us.
Yeah, exactly.
If we flat out misstate something, then maybe we give the wrong date or whatever. I'm trying to clean that up. But if we are who we are.
That's
and
right.
At the end of the day, we want our listeners to know that we're just real dudes just trying to get it done.
And people like that. That's why they tune in.
Yeah. Plastic doesn't get you very far. You got to just be real. So, Rocky, I really do appreciate your authenticity, your drive, your work. I love what you're just trying to do with the balance of being a dad and a husband and all that. And certainly if there's anything that we could ever do here at Strong Dads, we'd love to help in any way. And just this conversation has to keep being driven. And especially, I'm the old man here, but I'm still raising young kids, which that's a whole nother chapter. But if we don't talk to guys your ages and younger, and get that message going.
Yeah.
These issues that we deal with are just going to keep growing.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
No question.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. This is fun.
Yeah.
Great time.
Rocky,
Anything I can ever do to help you guys?
Great. We better say thanks one last time.
Yes, definitely. Definitely Strong Dads again wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency and the Kramer Beer House down Route 128. Thanks so much for coming alongside of us and believing in what we believe in. And definitely, Rocky, thanks so much for being here. Go out there and be some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.